All right, here is Mythic, Imperator, Averzian explained. Beginning, you can look at the room here. You'll see I've separated it into 9 sections. They're separated by fishes. These separate 9 sections will matter for a game of tic-tac-toe that we're going to play throughout this fight. At the beginning, we're going to lust on the pool, and everyone is going to target the Imperator. Partway through, after a short period of time, abyssal void shapers, 3 of them, will spawn on any of those 9 random locations. In this case, I've said they're spawning in 1, 2, and 5. They could spawn on any of the 9 sections, but there'll always be 3 of them that spawn. They'll be protected by a thing called a cosmic shell, which makes them all completely immune to damage. In order to be able to damage them, 6 players within the raid are going to be targeted by something called void marked. And those players will have to go and stand under the cosmic shell on the 2 that we plan to break, and then they will be dispelled while standing under them. That will break the cosmic shell and then make those ads damageable. There'll be an umbral collapse that spawns one and then another very quickly afterward. The usual way that this soak is done is the melee players will go to the first location and they will get their soak complete here. The ranged players will run up to the next location, and then the umbral collapse will be brought to them and be soaked on the 2 that we plan to destroy. While this is happening, the Imperator has been attacking the main tank the entire time, and when they get to approximately 8 stacks of blackening wounds, that is the time that they will do a taunt swap. What will have happen next is a game of tic-tac-toe. So, because in that example I showed you a moment ago, we've cleared number 2 and we've cleared number 5, those places will now still be free. But the one we didn't clear, if I go back for a moment, is number 1. Number 1 here has not been cleared. It will remain, and it will be the first point in the game of tic-tac-toe that we're playing. This area will become what we call claimed territory. You cannot have 3 claimed territories in any line, or that will wipe the entire raid. If the Imperator is ever within 10 yards of one of these claimed territories, he will do 75% more damage and he will take 99% less damage. So the tanks need to be keeping him away from any of these claimed territories. The claimed territory, when it is taken, will fire beams out from the claimed space that the raid will need to dodge. This is an example of what a raid wipe would look like. So if we had 3 of those in a row, the shock you can imagine a line that cuts through 3 in a row, that will wipe the entire raid in the game of tic-tac-toe. That can also happen diagonally. If it was to happen in this location, that would also be a raid wipe, and this one would also be a raid wipe. So you can never have 3 of these leftover portals in a row. To make that work well, the best way you should be trying to prioritize which ones to destroy and which ones you can't destroy is always trying to remove the vertical or horizontal lanes first. That will make movement far easier for all of the tanks. Now, when this portal spawns and this claimed space appears, we're going to have 3 types of ads that all spawn. And those 3 types of ads are all going to be running toward the tank that had the most blackening wound stacks built up on them. They need to be moved away from one of the claimed zones. So in this case, I'm talking about this tank over here. He moves away into a space away from the claimed zone. The other tank that's on the Imperator drags him as far away as possible from this tank and from the claimed zone. The 3 types of ad that are spawning are Void Moors, which are just kind of these little guys down here. When they get to about 35% health, they will turn and they will attempt to run back to a claimed zone and heal themselves. So we need to make sure we're stunning and stopping that happening. There'll also be a Shadow Guard Stalewart that spawns who will cast an ability called Pitch Bulk Walk, and that needs to be interrupted or it will put a shield on the ads and make them even harder to kill. There'll also in Mythic be a thing called an End Walker, which is a larger ad that is the priority target that we all need to be making sure we kill. Now, while that is all occurring, there will be an ability that comes from the Imperator called Oblivion's Wrath. That will fire from the boss, like in these arrows that I've shown, all the way outward, and then they will turn and they will come back in. So they're like a boomerang. So just because you dodged it on the way out doesn't mean you've dodged it on the way back in. And in Mythic, those are likely a one shot if you're a cloth user. There'll be a small safe pocket where none of them actually spawn. So in this case, I've shown with that little safe pocket being in the red section here, but it could be anywhere around the Imperator. But if you get yourself standing in this location, these arrows will fire out, they will all return, and you will be safe if you're in this area. If not, you can still position yourself. Like, so let's just say I'm a ranged player. I could put myself here between two of them. They'll fire out, they'll come back, and they won't hit me as long as I'm not moving around. And we're continuing to keep both of the ads that have been pulled far away from the reclaimed space, and we're keeping the Imperator away from all of those ads as well. Because if the Imperator ends up close to this ad up here, they'll take that 75% more damage and 99% decreased damage. So we need to make sure that they remain separate from one another. Now, every time we go into this intermission phase and we have a new reclaimed space spawning, more ads will spawn, and they will spawn from every portal that exists. So in the first version I showed you, we only had one portal, so we had one set of ads. We had three sets of lines we had to dodge. In the picture you're seeing now, this is a stage that will happen in the raid where you have three sections that are claimed space, and all three sections will fire three lines or more off them, and all three of them will spawn their own sets of ads. So the further into the fight you move, the more ads you're going to have, the more beams you're going to have to dodge, and the less space you're going to have to dodge, because you also have to make sure that while you're doing this, that we keep the Imperator away from these zones. We can't have him close to them, and we also can't have him close to the tank that's tanking all the ads either. So the tanks have to be moving the Imperator as far away as possible. The whole raid is burning all of those ads as quickly as physically possible, and then returning to target the Imperator. In the second, fourth, and sixth intermission, there will be a thing called Shadow Phalanx, which is basically portals that will spawn at the top of the room. You can actually see the portals spawn in the locations early before these untargetable troops begin marching from the north of the room all the way down to the south of the room. They are not interruptible, damageable, and you can't do anything to them other than die if they touch you. And they will spawn and block off basically two-thirds of the room. So in this example, there's a safe zone in the center of the room, and if you were over here or over here, you would be getting killed. We're needing to make sure that we're moving the Imperator not too close to any of these zones as we move him around, because he will take the damage reduction if he gets too close to them. Another example of that same thing is here. Perhaps what happens is the two sets of portals spawn over here, and they block off this two-thirds of the room, and the only safe zone is over here. In this case, we've got to grab the Imperator, make sure we move him away. The whole raid follows, and we keep him away from that reclaimed space to ensure that he's not doing more damage and taking less damage. And the last example that you may see of that is exactly this, where these two sections of the room are death. You get hit by the ads, you die. And we have to make sure in this case, because we're between two reclaimed spaces, that we're keeping him in the center so he's not too close to either of them, so we can keep our DPS up on him. All we are required to do is complete that over and over and over and repeat those same cycles. That's it. That's the entire fight. Once you've done the sixth intermission, you can't have any more. It's not mathematically possible. So you're just going to make sure you're playing the game of tic-tac-toe and ensuring that you never have three in a line. Otherwise, that will be death. And you will be able to do that a maximum of 6 times before it is not possible, at which time the Shadow Phalanx will spawn on every section of the room. And when they spawn in every section of the room, you'll have them here, you'll have them here, you'll have them here, you'll have them here. And the boss will also take his damage immunity, and you will no longer have any zones that are safe. Every zone will now be death, and that is the point at which we will wipe. You won't be able to kill him at that point. So you've got to make sure he's dead before then. That's the DPS check of the fight. That's it. Easiest boss on the expansion. Enjoy.